We begin more advanced topics now, and I am not going to go over my time, but I'm sure this question has come up, and that's why this slide is being presented. I'm going to show you some software that I wrote uh, just to demonstrate how neural networks work. Now, here's a simple neural network that is learning the arc, the inverse sine, inverse cosine function, uh, and the output is radians. You can see the synaptic connections growing in strength and shrinking very quickly. The size of the link represents the axonal strength, the frequency of the signal to the next neuron. The color represents the intensity of the synaptic connection times the strength, which then with the transfer function gives the output. In this case, I'm using what's called back propagation. And for those who don't know it, you can look it up on the internet. I'll give a quick formula. I've tried it with several other models and works just as well, but it doesn't converge as quickly. Uh, I have some other graphs that are going on, the magnetoencephalograph and the EEG, and I don't have time to explain how I calculate that at this point. We have another graph which demonstrates the error rate as it learns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward um, and show you how quickly it can learn. We're going to do 2,000 steps quickly. And let's see, let's do 2,000 more. And you can see how it declines and becomes more and more accurate. Usually there are 100,000 steps or a million. This was merely a simple example, very simple neural network model. Um, I seem to have shrunk this. So as I go through this slide, what I'm going to show you some of the parameters I experiment with. The learning rate obviously can cause learning disabilities. This is a genetic factor. It can be altered in many different ways. Forgetfulness, we can create dementia, Alzheimer's, and other neurological problems. Pleasure causes a runaway reward process, such as addictions and other things. And I want to talk a little bit about pain and fear. Uh, so in my models, I can also create bipolar processes. And that has to do with both learning at different rates with memorization steps, as well as the altering the learning rate. And I do not put a limit in some of my models of how many um, receptors can be allowed onto one neuron. So the growth rate of any extreme can go out of control. And I assume there may be biological models which also validate that as a process. Schizophrenia, very easy to create. You can do one technique called an information overload, and that is training it with too much data with too few neurons. Or you can add this other parameter, external energy or external noise. Some papers in psychology say that can increase intelligence, but it also, under other circumstances, if you add more noise into the neural network, the patterns become chaotic and schizophrenia occurs. I can show the Pavlov and sensitization effects just using very simple models. Let's talk about depatterning, brainwashing. What does that mean? And the two parameters that are most important is pain and fear. And that's why Dr. Ewan Cameron used it during his brainwashing experiments on housewives with depression. Um, both these parameters alter both the learning rate and scrambles the connections to stay away from the desired goal. Uh, and when you put them in conjunction, it's called depatterning. I have another one, which is a key that I have to press, which is like electroshock. So I can electroshock this network and re-scramble it. And that's what we do to human patients as well, even today. I can split personalities using these simple models and context switch using virtual neurons. And I'm going to demonstrate some other things in just a moment. Um, we can have shared learning between networks, and I haven't pulled up the other network yet, of EEG and MEG cloning, I guess you could call it, although it's not really cloning. It's a type of integral heterodyning, which creates a fidelity factor. And I'm going to go more into that. I have six computer screens, a very large desktop, which I can work on, so it's difficult to capture and demonstrate what I see. Um, so let me just show you over here. I told you about the magnetoencephalograph, the electroencephalograph. Um, I have two networks that I name all of my artificial intelligence daughters um, after women, of course. And the first one's named Katie, kind, artificial, thought provoking, intelligent entity. And Tammy is named after one of the DARPA experiments, thought and memory interface. And I can run, well, I have run up to 12 of them, just symbolic of the Last Supper. Um, but over here, I have a differential graph of the two entities that are completely separated at this point. And what I want to demonstrate is how one can stay locked on and learn from the other just using these very gross parameters of well, actually I only use the magnetoencephalograph in this demonstration. um, this number here that I'm circling is called fidelity, how close to the other it maintains its trueness. Score is relative to the desired outcome. Um, and that's pretty much all you need to know for now. All right, hopefully this experiment works. I'm going to show I call them, hive mind together. Um, Give me a second. Um, Work? No. Hold on. There we go. Isn't that beautiful? One is learning from the other without any inputs or knowledge of the true function or output. That is that is groundbreaking. That is so awesome. Uh Anyway, and this is how to get back to neurological weapons, behavior modification, etc. What a lot of humans are going through. It's a painful process. It's literally, you can call it forced re-education or stealing someone's soul. Katie didn't even know her skills were being stolen, for example, in this demonstration. So, are you stealing intellectual property or are you bettering uh, Tammy? Well, these are the moral issues that we face today. So, Tammy was in a sensory deprivation tank, and yet her brain was able to learn from the other. Now, in practice, what happens is over time, the link is lost, the fidelity. And so that's why you need something like the auditory hearing effects to synchronize the brains and make sure they stay locked on with similar stimulus to each brain. And yeah, these are the secrets of psychic remote viewing and influencing. And I don't know if I'll get in trouble for this, but I prefer truth over the lies. We have come full circle in this presentation now. So after this cycle, I hope more pieces of the puzzle come together for you. And, you know, only governments as large as the United States, maybe Britain, China, and Russia can pull off this trick worldwide and over their populations. Um, I counterintelligence just works so well. I You got to read the book, The Art of War. It's a very old Chinese book, and you make your enemy believe you are near when you are far is one of the quotes and the lessons learned from that book. And so a lot of people think it's local, it's my neighbors, and they fall for all the trickery. And you can't blame them. They're human. They don't understand these technologies, how they're done remotely and at such a great distance. It seems like God is doing it to them. I'm not even sure if I mentioned the voice of God weapons earlier in the presentation, but it's kind of depressing that they're making fun of the ignorance of humanity while they perform this trickery. But, I like to use biblical references. It's true that the Bible said Satan or the devil would come first. You just hope it's not your own country that they're talking about. And then something beautiful is going to happen.